Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Focus TV. We got Octavia here. We got Raymond Lyons. I'm Wilson Tarpey Jr. Season 7, episode 50. We got the normal things to get through. We're gonna start with the NFC East, get over to the Washington Wizards, who have accomplished a thing. Ray's gonna let you guys know a little bit more about it, and then we got take it, leave it, and rapid fire. But Octavia, we'll start with you in the ever exciting NFC East.
It would be that much more exciting if every other team besides mine lost this week. But no, somebody wants to do something ridiculous and decide that they want to actually win a game at the end. Of course, if you don't live under a rock, since you live here in the Washington, D.C. area, you know the Washington Commanders played against the Chicago Bears, battle of the number 1 and number 2 pick in last year's draft, Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. The Washington Commanders were victorious. They defeated the Bears 18-15. Jaden Daniels was 21 of 38, 326 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 sacks, 8 carries for 52 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. had 16 carries for 65 yards. Terry McLaurin had 5 receptions for 125 yards, and Noah Brown had 3 receptions for 73 yards. Again, if you don't live under a rock, you've probably seen this on a loop like you will continue to see probably for the foreseeable future. It came down to a Hail Mary play at the end. To be fair, and I'm being very honest, it was a pretty boring game if you really want to think about it. The Commanders had kind of a repeat of what they had when they played against the Giants earlier this year. They were able to consistently get into the red zone, but they just weren't able to punch it in for touchdowns. They had to settle for field goals. Their kicker, Austin Seibert, he was 4 of 5 on field goals, and he's now 23 of 25 for the season. As great as the play was, it's more so about how it was covered, of course, with the Chicago Bears. There was just so much wrong. I don't know what anybody was thinking when it came to this. Of course, we have to get to the cornerback for the Bears, Tyreek Stevenson, who I don't know what he was doing. I guess he was excited that it looked like the Bears were going to beat a very good Washington Commanders team. I'm sure he's probably tired of hearing all of the Commanders talk and how great Jaden is, maybe trying to pump up the fact that, he has Caleb Williams, he's the number 1 pick. And he was just talking a lot of trash to the fans while said game was going on. And insult to injury, he happened to be the person who actually knocked the ball back where Noah Brown was just standing and the ball fell into his hand. To add even more insult to injury, his coach came out and stated that he was the player that should have been back there boxing out Noah Brown in that situation, which, understandable if that's really what he was supposed to be doing. But to me, it kind of seemed like a cop-out because I feel like the coach was trying to get a lot of the heat off of him because he was definitely taking a lot of heat for his decisions as far as coaching in this game, whether it was to let, Terry McLaurin get the 13, 15-yard reception to really make it a more manageable throw for Jaden Daniels, who also was in this game with hurt ribs, and he was basically a game-time decision. So being able to heave the ball, I think it was 52-ish yards to touch for the touchdown. I would assume that hurts. He doesn't look like that big of a guy. I've never had a rib injury, but I hear it hurts. So I can only imagine in that instance. I don't know why they had somebody spying him as well. Like he was going to run down the field and score. When you have all of those people back there, I don't know if they were that terrified of Jaden Daniels' speed from that far away. It was just a cluster of a lot of things that happened in that aspect. Now, outside of this, because I know this is the only play pretty much anybody has seen of this game, their defense was actually pretty good in this game as well. Washington defense has a lot of combined 22 points over the past 2 games and was pretty much the biggest reason why they were even able to hoist up said Hail Mary. Their defense really kept them in the game for majority of the game, holding Chicago out of the end zone as well, as they really were just trading field goals at this point. They did have a slight lapse of judgment with DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson, busting out for big plays close to the end of the game, and I think Roschon Johnson is the one that scored at the end to really put them in the front where they had no timeouts, and Chicago just thought that they were going to be able to win. And I mean, speaking of that, Chicago had 3 timeouts. I don't know what they were going to do with all 3 of them on the plane home. I probably would have called one as soon as I saw what they came out in. You know, ice the kicker, ice the pass or something. I don't know why you're holding on to these timeouts. The decisions of Matt Eberflus continuously baffled me. And Chicago was on a pretty decent run as far as their last couple of games. Hopefully this isn't a game that's going to bite them in the behind as the season goes on, when they look back on this and they could be one game out of making the playoffs to another NFC team. So it's going to be tough. Now, like I said, as great as, you know, the game itself was at the end, the last 4 minutes of it or whatnot. One thing I think that the Commanders still need to work on, of course, is their red zone offense. Like I said, this is the second game in a row where, well, not in a row, but this is their second game this season where they were able to get in the red zone. They just could not get the ball into the end zone. Their first 3 field goals were all within 30 yards, so right inside of the red zone. They had a false start penalty, which impacted one of the drives. Zach Ertz didn't catch a pass in the end zone. Like I said, luckily for them, their kicker, who we know they've had a lot of struggles with kickers in the past couple of years, was able to, you know, keep them in the game with making 4 out of 5 of his field goals. So, I mean, it was a game that, you know, they needed to win. You know, it shows, of course, the toughness of Jaden Daniels. He's still in the thick of things. If you want to say, you know, offensive rookie of the year, some people are definitely still putting him in the conversation for MVP. But they're going to have some tough games as well coming up. You know, this one was, to be fair, a tough game. And Chicago really broke down in the end, although you got to play who's in front of you. You take the W's as they come. And Washington took another one. They're 6-2. I think they said they're 6-2 for the first time in like ever. I don't want to say ever, but for a very long time. I mean, like I said, still having issues in the red zone. The Commanders went 59 minutes and 57 seconds before scoring their only touchdown on the final play of the game, which is crazy to think about. They had a lot of penalties, some drops, like I talked about. And, you know, they just had some miscues that really should have cost them the game, to be fair, but they were able to hold it together. So, and like I said, their defense did well as was doing well in this game as well. The Bears were second in the league in second quarter points over the last 3 games. They were held to 0 by the Commanders, marking the first time since 1997 that the team has held an opponent scoreless in the first half of consecutive games. So that's also the fact that I always get them mixed up. Either Deron Payne or Jonathan Allen. I can't remember which one of them is out right now. And that's with losing one of their big players. And that's also on the other side. We forget that they traded Montez Sweat to the Bears last year. And Montez Sweat was a game wrecker in this as well. Another scratching my head moment as far as the Chicago Bears coaching staff. I don't know why Montez Sweat wasn't in the game when this happened as well. I mean, we've had a lot of people being gassed in the NFL. It seems like a lot of people are tired. They don't want to play. And they got to tap out for a play or two. Again, 3 timeouts. Probably should have called one and let him catch his breath and get him in the game. But I digress. Now, like I said, the Commanders are definitely going to have some tough games ahead of them. Next week will not be one of them. They will play against I say next week will not be one of them. They will play against the New York Giants. The Giants we'll get to in a second, and we know what the Giants are going through. But I say that with also saying that we know that these games inside of the divisions are always very wonky and very crazy, just like we talked about it, as well as the Commanders have been playing all year. When they played against the Giants pulled basically what the Commanders pulled in this game, where they got down to the red zone and not the same thing, excuse me. They got down to the red zone and they scored a lot. They just didn't have a kicker. So they missed a lot of, those extra points that could have really put them away in that game. So who knows? At this point, the Giants don't have a lot to lose. They don't really look like they're going to go anywhere in this playoff contention coming up. So, maybe they play balls to the walls, and you never know, especially when it comes down to an interdivision game. They'll play the Giants on Sunday at 1:00. Speaking of said Giants, I don't know why they keep putting them on prime time, but here we are again. The Giants played against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which to me is crazy because the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they said, are like 20 something straight games of winning on prime time. And I saw a stat, and they said that they're not 100% if it's confirmed, but I did see this, that they said the Giants have lost again, of course, on national television in prime time. Since 2019, they are 1-18 on national televised games in the regular season and 1-16 under Daniel Jones under center in prime time. To have that versus the monstrosity that we have on the other side with the Pittsburgh Steelers, just kind of crazy to think of. But the New York Giants did lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers 26-18. Daniel Jones was 24 of 38, 264 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 sacks, 3 carries for 1 yard. Tyrone Tracy Jr., 20 carries for 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions for 5 yards. And Darius Slayton had 4 receptions for 108 yards. It's really bad for the Giants. I feel bad because I don't think they played horrible in this game. But the small nuances that you think about in games that sometimes you don't really pay attention to are the things that really got them caught up in this game and took them out of contention for the win. The Giants have lost 6 of their first 8 games for the second straight season. We know 2 years ago was when, they had the whole resurgence and they made it to the playoffs under Daboll, and they, kind of peaked pretty early. And now here we are 2 years later, 2-6 for the second straight year, coming into the first 8 games of the season. It's getting bad. Like I said, they're going to play against the Commanders next week. And then following that, they'll play against the Carolina Panthers. And baby, if they lose to them too, some heads got to start rolling. I think that Don Meyer came out a couple of weeks ago and said that he's not considering an in-season change at head coach or any of the coordinators. But I think they also said that he said something similar to that a couple of years ago. And then a week or two after that, there were changes. I don't know how much more of this you can take in New York. It's not a good look for them right now. But like I said, the fact that they lost the game is probably the biggest takeaway from it because they had opportunities in this. They had some explosive plays. I mean, they had a myriad of everything. They had explosive plays. They had a lot of mistakes, a lot of offense, but no touchdowns. Ending the game again in an interception where I'm going to tell you, I knew that was going to happen. I don't know if I don't see how you couldn't script it that they were going to throw an interception at the end of the game. They weren't going to go and win it. It's just what it is with them. And then of course they had a lot of penalties. They had 4 illegal shifts or illegal formation penalties. They got flagged 6 times on their first 2 offensive possessions. I mean, I don't know how you can win games like that. We're back to talking about their offensive line again. As great as Pittsburgh is, TJ Watt is an animal. Highsmith, Cameron Hayward. I mean, I feel like when TJ Watt is playing, like it just looks so effortless. Like just to know that, like, yeah, I'm about to go in here and sack the quarterback and strip the ball and recover it myself. Just in the game, like, let's just go do that real quick. And it just looks like he just walks up to him and say, hey, get down, give me the ball. We out of here. Like, that's just what it looks like. And just, the Giants, the Giants is so bad. But if you want to give them, a little bit of a bright spot, Tyrone Tracy Jr. has been a bright spot for them. 5th round pickup for them in the draft this past year, where Devin Singletary was slated to be the number 1 ball carrier for them. Of course, he had some injuries, which thrusted Tyrone Tracy Jr. into the forefront, and he has not looked back since then. Again, like I said, he rushed for 145 yards on 20 attempts, which averaged about 7.3 yards per carry. He ripped off a 45-yard touchdown run. The Giants' longest offensive play of the season. He is a bright spot for them. Hopefully they're able to cultivate him a little bit more. And to think, he's doing that behind a subpar offensive line. If you actually get him some, top tier offensive line play. We could possibly see what that will look like in the coming years. I don't know what it is. The Giants just can never get the offensive line right, from just personnel, from injuries. It just never works out in their favor. Like I said, the Giants did move the ball up and down the field pretty well. They only punted 4 times. They are only one other team gained more than the Giants, 394 yards against the Steelers defense this season, which was surprisingly the team we'll talk about next, which is the Cowboys in week 5 when they gained 445 yards. The Steelers were a top 3 run defense this year. And again, Tyron Tracy is he ran through them, to a certain extent. But the Steelers, they bend don't break. They came through when it was necessary, and they were able to hold it out. But like I said, the bad, of course, is the penalties are just ridiculous. They had 11 penalties for 65 yards, and the defense led. I mean, Russell Wilson looks like kind of the Russell Wilson we used to see, and they let him pile up the 426 yards against them. So it's just a cluster F again of a lot of things going on in New York. And if it's not the time now, because I think it's the time now to blow the whole thing up. You got $160 million quarterback and you're 2-6. That's tough to swallow, especially in the heart of New York City, even though they play in New Jersey. It's just tough. And I feel a little bit bad for the New York sports community. You guys are going through it right now. I said a little bit bad, like maybe that much. They got a lot going on right now. But again, like I said, they're going to play against the Commanders on Sunday. Next, we'll get to the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys played against the San Francisco 49ers. They lost to the San Francisco 49ers 30-24. Dak Prescott was 25 of 38, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, 1 carry for -1 yard. Ezekiel Elliott, 10 carries, 34 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 reception for 4 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 13 receptions, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'd like to point out that in those first 3 games, every quarterback threw the same amount of passes, which is 38, which is wow when I was pulling all my stats together. Dak, Jaden, and Daniel Jones all threw 38 times, which I just thought was weird. Had to mention it there because Jalen did not throw 38 times. To come off a bye, and then playing against the likes of the 49ers, who, of course, are going through a terrible time as far as injuries. Brandon Ayuk out for the year. I think Jordan Mason got hurt in this game. CMC didn't play. We know Debo was in the ER for pneumonia. They got a lot going on as far as their offensive side and injuries. So, you think the Dallas Cowboys, coming off of a bye, trying to make sure that they can keep their season, in bay and making sure that they're still in the middle of things. It was just a tough game for them. Now I talk about the injuries on the 49er side. They have their injuries as well. Micah Parsons, of course, didn't play. Brandon Cooks is still out. Marshawn Nealon was out. DeMarcus Lawrence is still out. They're hoping that they get them back within the month, but it's starting. I don't want to say it's starting to slip away because I feel like we're still in the middle of the season. A lot can change, but they have a pretty good next 4 opponents that they're going to have to play against. That right now they are 3-4. And these next 4 games can go either way. I'm not sure if they're favored in any of them. They'll play against Atlanta, Philly, Houston, and Washington over their next 4 games. And those 4 teams are combined 22-9 on the year. So you're definitely playing teams that are above 500 that are pretty good teams. They had a lot of things going on as well, offensively, defensively, and also their special teams had 3 kickoff penalties on Sunday, which, I mean, they're kickoff penalties. I feel like kickoff penalties happen a lot. It just always seems like somebody moves too fast. Somebody slightly hits somebody in the back or whatever. I think in this game, there was a situation where he almost actually hit the punter. And it's just a lot. The Cowboys have lost 4 straight games to San Francisco, including 2 playoff games. They've been outscored 69-30 in the past 2 trips to Levi. As bad as it seems, like I said, the score was 30-24. They definitely put together a big push towards the end of the game. But a lot of times when you fall behind really, really early, it's tough to catch up, which was not really the motto of the Dallas Cowboys. They're a team that likes to get ahead early and let their defense kind of eat, even though it hasn't really panned out that well for them this year. In the third quarter, the 49ers outgained the Cowboys 167 yards to 16 yards. They had 10 first downs to the Cowboys 0 first downs and scored 21 points. That's where it kind of pulled apart in as far as the score in that game. Like I said, they did mount a comeback in the fourth quarter, but according to ESPN research, Dak Prescott is the first Cowboy quarterback with multiple interceptions in 3 straight games since Troy Aikman in 1992. It appears that the Cowboys went on to win the Super Bowl that year. I'm sure Dak and them are hoping that that's still a possibility for them as well. But yeah, on National Tight Ends Day, they had no answer for your man, George Kittle. I mean, to be fair, National Tight End Day was wild because all the tight ends were just eating everywhere. It was like, oh, it's our day. We got to go off. Because, I mean, I'll get to it in our game. Mike Gesicki is not that goddamn good, okay? He is not that goddamn good. He was driving me insane. Like, they needed to drug test every tight end in the league on Sunday, okay? Because
that is a high level of hate. Man had a good day on his position on a holiday.
Nah, bro, he is not that goddamn good. I don't want to see him in his ugly ass gritty going all over the place. He needed to relax. But I'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, I mean, George Kittle had 6 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. He had at least 3 catches for 25 yards. It's like nobody could find him. They couldn't find the guy with the long hair and the 8 and the 5 on his jersey. I don't know. There was a lot going on. Now, as bad as you want to say Dak Prescott is playing, while yes, he could definitely be playing better, especially with the money that's in his pockets that he got this offseason. His offensive line isn't helping him out any much as well. Terrence Steele and Tyler Guyton have struggled a lot in pass protection, and you can see that Dak really can't step into his throws. He's short-arming them. He's trying to make things, and that's really where he makes his bad decisions and ill-advised throws, which have led to a lot of his turnovers this year. On top of that, we're talking about the offensive line, and then you have Ezekiel Elliott, and they decided to elevate Dalvin Cook from the practice squad. And I don't know. And then Jerry Jones comes out and just says the most ridiculous things ever. Like Derrick Henry doesn't fit our offensive scheme. Like, what? Derrick Henry fits anybody's offensive scheme. Give him the goddamn ball. Like, I don't know. It to me, that was probably the craziest take that I heard this week. I wanted to look at something real quick while I look at it. The Dallas Cowboys rushing attempts, they had 19 carries for 56 yards. Brock Purdy had 8 carries for 56 yards. I don't understand it. The San Francisco 49ers had 36 yards for 223 yards. The run defense is still an issue for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, we know they're missing some good pieces on defense, but that's a lot. That's a lot. Dalvin Cook, I think he had what did they say? He had 6 carries for 12 yards. And 1 reception for 10 yards. The trade deadline's coming up. There have already been some moves going on, and I believe Jerry Jones has already come out and said that they don't plan on doing anything, which is it's mind-blowing to me. If you feel like this team is one of the best teams you've ever had and you feel like you guys should be performing at a higher clip, it's just tough for them. But like I said, they did try to put together, a comeback in the fourth quarter. Dak threw 2 touchdown passes to CeeDee Lamb to cut the deficit to 6. Had a chance to come back, but threw 4 straight incomplete passes after getting the ball back with 3 minutes and 5 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and that was pretty much all she wrote. So they got to go back to the drawing board again. They're 3-4, and like I said, their next 4 games are not going to be easy at all. Playing against the Atlanta Falcons, who another tight end just decided that he wanted to be good on Sunday in Kyle Pitts, where we know what his struggles were last year. Yeah, I'm coming for all the tight ends, all of them, because my tight end didn't get to play on tight end day because he's injured, and I'm a little butthurt about it, but it's okay. So they'll play against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday at 1:00. They got to get it together. You know, the Atlanta Falcons are leading the South. The South doesn't look as terrible as the last couple of years, even though, you know, the Saints started off pretty hot. The Bucks started off pretty hot. And they're going through a terrible injury bug as well. Not having Chris Godwin and Mike Evans I don't know who else is a wide receiver out there. I don't know what else they're doing out there. So it's going to be tough, you know, for that team. But the Dallas Cowboys have to get it together. And last but not least, Philadelphia Eagles played against the Cincinnati Bengals. They defeated the Bengals 37-17. Jalen Hurts was 16 of 20, 236 yards, 1 touchdown. He was not sacked at all, which is crazy. 10 carries for 37 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Saquon Barkley had 22 carries for 108 yards, 1 reception for 3 yards. And Devontae Smith had 6 receptions, 85 yards for 1 touchdown. First off, everybody who has Saquon in your parlay, I'm sorry, because that's all I've been seeing. And you know what? It happened to me too. I had a parlay hit, and literally the last leg of my parlay would have been for Saquon Barkley to score a touchdown. Jason Kelce told him early on when he first was, you know, he got there and he went on their podcast, if it gets to the 1 yard line, just wrap it up, bro. You're not going to score. It's not. And to everybody, you know, and this is more so of me speaking to Philadelphia Eagle fans, not people on the outside, because I understand the frustration when you see the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever it is. To the fans, get over it, bro. I don't care if they push his tush 5,000 times into the goddamn end zone. That's all that matters. I don't care if you keep talking about something. Get a ball to Saquon. Let somebody else score. No. If they can't stop it, keep doing it. I don't care. People on the outside understand it's frustrating if you can't stop it. So it is what it is. But to Philadelphia Eagles fans, come on, guys. Like, you know, I saw other people like, dang, Will Shipley almost scored. I wish they would have let him. We'll be all right. He got plenty of years left to try to score. He'll be all right. But yeah, to me, this was the best game they played all season. You know, the last couple of games, yes, they played against the Browns, they played against the Giants. But there was a lot of talk like, oh, it's the Browns, oh, it's the Giants. And granted, don't get me wrong, there are probably still whispers about the fact, oh, it's the Bengals. You know, the Bengals haven't been playing that well this year. They didn't have T. Higgins, which I'll be honest was probably a big setback for them. We were able to double up and really hold Jamar Chase feet to the fire, even though for whatever reason, again, we just cannot get started in the first quarter. The Cincinnati Bengals had like a 10-minute drive in the first quarter. So by the time we got the ball, the first quarter was basically over. So that continues that streak of them not being able to score in the first quarter. They failed to score in the first quarter for their 8th consecutive game, of course, every game of the season, marking the longest first quarter drought for the team in the past 25 years. I don't particularly care if they ever score in the first quarter, as long as they score in the fourth and they win. Does not matter. They put up only 55 yards of offense in that quarter, but again, who cares? Jalen Hurts, just bravo, bro. I know that he doesn't get a lot of accolades anymore. A lot of people, you know, feel like he can't read the field and, you know, the turnover prone and everything. He's had 3 straight games with no turnovers. And it's his 3rd career game with 3 rushing touchdowns, which is the most of any quarterback since the start of 1950. Now, yeah, whatever. Call it the tush push, call it the brotherly shove, but he gets in the end zone every time and he makes the correct decision. His accuracy in the deep ball has gotten so much better. Not to say that it was terrible. I mean, it was bad at times. But it's crazy what it'll do when you have your top 2 wide receivers back. You know, when you have Devontae, who was out a game with a concussion, when you had A.J. Brown, who was out with a hamstring injury early on in the game, early on in the season. They're 4-0 with him in the lineup. And then you got to give a lot of kudos to the offensive line, who's missing Jordan Mailata. Also this week, they missed Mekhi Becton, who was also out with a concussion Fred Johnson and Tyler Steen stepped in and kept Jalen clean, which, don't get me wrong, Cincinnati's defense hasn't been that great, but Trey Hendrickson is pretty good. And Fred Johnson had to block him for a great part of this game, and he was able to keep Jalen Hurts clean. Again, we talk about Saquon. He's just chugging along. He's doing what he needs to do. Saquon rushed for 108 yards. As a whole, they ran for 161 yards. And they scored 20 straight points in the game. Joe Burrow is amazing, and granted, with Mike Gesicki doing all of those ridiculous things, one-handed catches and whatnot on tight ends day, they were still able to pull out the win. Definitely got to give some love to the Young Bucks in the defensive secondary. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, the play where he, on the 4th and 1, where he literally was step for step mimicking Jamar Chase behind the line and able to go and hit the man. I feel like that's been an issue with some of our DBs in the past couple of years. They wait for the man to come to them. Cooper went to him, drove him into the ground. It was amazing to see. Quinyon, I think he had 2 targets thrown at him for like 15 yards. Jamar Chase, they were able to, like I said, keep him at bay. Jamar Chase had 9 catches for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. So all in all, they had a great game. The defense is playing so much better. So much better. It looks like that Bryce Huff is starting to get a little bit in the mix. Nakobe Dean is coming into his own. Zach Bond, we have to figure out a way to keep him. He had 12 total tackles, 8 solo, which was the most on the most in the game. They're playing well. Now, of course, they got a lot more to go. There's a lot more good teams that they're going to have to play going forward. I feel like they might have a little bit of a luck of the draw this week. Jacksonville, we know, hasn't been that great this year, but they also took another hit, losing another wide receiver with Christian Kirk going out with, I think they said, a broken collarbone, and then the rookie stud Brian Thomas Jr., he's out with the injury as well. So they should be able to feast in that game as well and continue to play well on the defensive side. But you never know in the NFC East. It's always something crazy. We'll see what happens next week.
All right, right from the NFC East to your Washington Wizards. What have they been up to?
Oh, yeah, man. Got their first win of the season last night in Atlanta. For once, they were the team that came out and was aggressive in the third quarter and kind of took control of the game. And that gave them the breathing room they needed, and they went on and finished it. Things that stood out to me was the defense, specifically on Trae Young. We talked about it a little bit last night on Outlook. That's one of the worst offensive games I've seen him have as a pro. And, Bilal Coulibaly just made his life miserable. So, yeah, man, it's just good to see them competing on that end. That's been a gripe of ours with this team for years. And as you can see, just putting forth effort on that end keeps you in a lot of games. If they can just clean up some things offensively, they be in a much better spot. We finally saw Kuz wake up. The first half he was still struggling a little bit, but in that third quarter he came alive. Hit a few threes. He started getting into a rhythm, and that he was really the orchestrator, that push that that gave them that lead. Jordan Poole, he's having a great start to his season. We know what kind of year he had last year, and I imagine that was hell to go through. But after being here a year, having a full off season, he seems to be much more comfortable. He's showing more leadership. Both on the court and being a vocal leader as well. So that's crucial with especially given that they're going to need their young guys to contribute to even resemble a competitive basketball team. So him kind of stepping up in that role is good to see. Also, the young guys just getting more aggressive. Period. This is Bilal's second year, so he's he's out of that rookie phase, and he's kind of seeing like, hey, I can kind of start to force the issue a little bit, and it's paying dividends. He had his career high out of game before last, and then responded with a solid game last night. He had 17 points. His confidence is just starting to become more evident. And Bud Carrington, he's been solid. He competes. He's able to run the team in Malcolm Brogdon's absence. And Keontae George and Alex Sarr, their main contributions have been defensively. That's just a lot of length, a lot of activity, and a lot of size, man. A couple of times the Hawks had trouble even inbounding the ball because of Keontae George's pressure on the inbounder. So yeah, man, like we know what they're capable of offensively. That's not a concern. I mean, of course, you want them to still be productive and be consistent on that end, but just being competitive and being locked in defensively, I think that's going to be the key for them this year. As they continue to assemble the building blocks of this rebuild, this new phase in the franchise's history. They got some pieces, man. Kispert, we talked about him a lot. And his improvements. They just gave him an extension, and it was well deserved. And he's come out and he showed that he was deserving of that money. So he continues to, of course, his main contribution is 3-point shooting, but he's consistently rounding out his game. Being in better shape, being better defensively, being more versatile offensively. We're seeing him put the ball on the floor a whole lot more at the early parts of the season. So yeah, man, it looks much better than it did at this point last year. I'll put it that way. So yeah, it's just refreshing to see them kind of develop and kind of come into their own. With Poole starting the season off the way he did, and hopefully with Kuz waking up last night, he can get back to the form he had last season. Man, they can be in the mix for a playing spot. Once the season wraps up, and now I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation. They're not at the top of the hill talent wise, but they got pieces that fit together, and with with their constant improvement defensively, I think they should definitely show some marked improvement. So they got Atlanta again, but this time it's in the confines of Capital One. So yeah, man, looking to make it 2 in a row, and yeah, we'll check in with y'all tomorrow night to see how things go.
Yeah, it's a whole understatement. You said something about the difference between last year and this year. Already that win last night was fun. If you guys want to hear Ray and Cardell break that game down in depth, get over to the channel. Check out the latest edition of Wizards Outlook. And as Ray mentioned, we'll be seeing you guys literally tomorrow. We're taping this on a Tuesday. We take on the Hawks again on a Wednesday. So if you guys are seeing this tomorrow, when you guys see this tomorrow, later on that evening, come join us for Wizards Outlook. All right, y'all, take it or leave it, man. We're going to get straight to it. Got some fun things. Bet you I don't know where we're starting this week, but we're going to start with the W because people have been acting crazy over there. Just a whole lot of craziness, man. This where we're going. Okay. Season is great season. A lot of viewership. Shout out to the Liberty. We went through all this, giving the Liberty their flowers for winning. All the folks this year who had big years. That's it, man. Since the end of the season, Kurt Miller, Teresa Witherspoon, Tanisha Wright, Latricia Trammell, Eric Tebow, Christy Size, Stephanie White were all dismissed from their teams. It's 12 teams in the league, y'all. It's just 12 teams. They're adding one now, but again, these people were fired before that team's officially about to get like active, and that'll be the follow-up question. But hey, man, what's going on with this? Take it or leave it. What's happening here with people being ousted of their jobs this quick? We know the W's a quick turnaround. We talk all the time about how tough it is to stay in the league as a player. But for coaches, and these are some of these coaches were in charge of teams who had like the top 4 picks. So, Ray, we'll start with you and then go to Octavia. Just tell you to leave it. What's happening here, man? Again, you guys see the little words on the screen here. Half the team's fired the coach. Most in league history.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's inexplicable. Especially with the two people that are pictured here, Christy Sides and Teresa Witherspoon. Like, I mean, Christy Sides took over a team 2 years ago that had 5 wins. They just won 20 games. Um, I don't I don't understand like what's the benchmark for doing a good job? And they're in the Fever in a good situation. They have back-to-back first round picks. I'm sorry, number one overall picks, who are phenomenal players. And they got pieces. Why not continue to build with that? Now you're basically going to have to start from scratch from a philosophy standpoint by bringing in another head coach. I mean, I know they changed some things in the front office, um, and typically that would come with uh, that would be a trickle down effect, but not in a situation where there's upward momentum like that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And Weatherspoon, I mean, she took over a team that was in shambles, and had several injuries throughout the season, and they were still in playoff contention on the last day of the season. Like what was her role? Like, you just come in for 1 year and all these catastrophic things happen, and you don't make the playoffs, and now you're gone like that. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, I don't know if this is the type of precedent they want to set. Uh, but yeah, same thing with Kurt Miller. Like I just don't understand like what the reasoning is behind some of these moves. Um, but yeah, it's been wild. I hope the WNBA doesn't move into this knee jerk reaction space where people just do things for the hell of it. Um, it's been a lot this year in the WNBA. I'll put it that way. But yeah, man, some of this stuff is just I don't know. It has me scratching my head.
It's been a very long year in the W. We knew it had the potential to be a long year, but man, it I felt every week. Octavia, take it or leave it on what's happening with the coaching.
I am
Coaching.
leaving. I am leaving it because at this point, who still has a job? Okay, like who is still coaching in the WNBA at this point? Is Becky Hammond and who else? Like, I don't even know anymore. Like, it's got to be some type of like conspiracy theory. The Illuminati has infiltrated the WNBA. Something is just right because like it's crazy. Like I'll be honest, I didn't dig too deep into what happened with the Mystics, but that one in itself, like I literally like my mouth dropped open, like what? What is happening? Um, I don't know why. I don't know who's making these decisions. I don't know if it has to do with the bigger publicized that the WNBA was this past year and that they're hoping to be as the years continue. Um, I'm also very interested in like who do y'all have that are going to replace these people? Um, who who? Like, I'm literally like who? Like I'm at a loss for this. I really don't know what this was. I'm hoping it's over now because I'm scared that there are still people talking and they're still going to be like, oh yeah, then this person got fired. You know, like it's a tough league. Like you said, we've said that about players. But I don't think I've ever seen this much turnover in the coaching aspect in the WNBA ever, you know. And I mean, granted, it says it there the most in league history, um, but it's wild. And like you said, definitely these two on the screen, outside of for our own, my at least my own personal preference with the T-balls, But these two on the screen, like you said, like Teresa literally got there. She just got there. She had Angel Reese, who obviously got injured at the end of the year, but she had a career year as a rookie as well. You got Camila Cardoza. They have building blocks to move forward. So to have them have to, like, granted, they just got there as well, but to start all over again. And then the same with the Fever, like you said, they went from 5 wins to 20 wins, making the playoff, sellout crowds and all types of things, the rookie of the year, back-to-back years. They've had a lot of growth within their organization as well, not just with Aaliyah and not just with Caitlin. Kelsey Mitchell had a great year. Like, I don't understand. Lexi Hall had a pretty decent year. Like, I don't understand it. I say I hope, but I know we won't ever find out the real reason behind it, outside of we just wanted to go in a new direction. I'm interested to see what those directions are and who will be leading those directions.
Yeah, it's been hilarious to me because I'm trying to figure out if you have back-to-back number one picks, it usually means you weren't, the type of situation you're in. You have to earn that to have back-to-back number one picks, and it's not the fun side of earning things. But hey, it's whatever. Also, Chicago, you kind of been one that chipped in the dumpster fire since, from a management standpoint. Left, down, up, right. Every decision wrong. Interesting to say the least. You got Connecticut. Though Stephanie White did a good job. Don't know what that's about. But hey, like Ray said, this has been a very long year. But we're not done there. Before we leave the W, I got one more for you guys because I had time today. Staying with the W, expansion draft is December 6th. Each WNBA team can protect up to 6 players. And those 6 players aren't allowed to be drafted. The list will have to be submitted 10 days prior to the draft. Take it or leave it how this impacts the prior topic. All those coaching vacancies, we're looking at November, right? That's like this week. December 6th is when the expansion draft is. You got 10 days before December 6th is when that list has to be put in. You got 7 open coaching spots. Take it or leave it, just how much the previous question is going to impact this in the offseason as a whole. Like, it's an expansion draft year. Fire 7 people. And no one new's been hired yet. Like, it's not like you fired them and we had the next person ready to go. Like, they're all vacant. So Octavia, we'll start with you then, right? Take it or leave it, expansion draft coming December 6th. We almost get to say we're like less than 2 months out. In like 72 hours, we get to say we're less than a month out from the expansion draft. But take it or leave it.
I'm only taking it for the drama of it all. Because this, like you said, I think Teresa Witherspoon was the first coach that was relieved of her duties. I was back on September 26th. And we're already a month out of that. And like you said, haven't heard anybody that's taken their place. So I'm very interested to see how those teams with no head coach are going to go into this expansion draft with having to protect 6 players on each team. The shakeup of it all is just going to be so much drama. Like, who's going to end up there? What type of team is it going to be together? I know they have a coach. I can't think of her name right now. I'm taking it for the drama, but I'm leaving it for the drama too, because this is just too much. It's too much. I love the fact that the W is expanding. And I think they have talks to expand into Portland again, maybe the next year or so. So it's exciting in that aspect, but the unknown behind it is kind of scary, so I will definitely be looking forward to more reports that come out the closer we get to it. And again, who are these people that are going to be replacing half of the coaches in the W already? Because they're going to have to start putting together who they feel like are going to be their 6 protected players and who they feel like is quote unquote expendable for an expansion draft. To put those players in, I don't want to say harm's way, but put them in a new situation that they might not be ready for. Especially when you have, a new coach coming into it. So, I mean, maybe that's part of it. The more I talk about it out loud, maybe that's part of it, start fresh, let them have their own thing. I don't know. It's very, it's very scary. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, man, they picked a bad time to do all this shuffling. Like you said, that deadline is gonna be here tomorrow, and none of these vacancies have been filled. Like they better start hiring people like this week. So yeah, it's gonna like what's going to happen in some of these cases probably is they're not going to get somebody in time, and they're going to lose a player that or put a player in a position to be drafted that they probably shouldn't be losing. So, and then what is that gonna do to the incoming coach? So, I mean, it's just a domino effect, man. That's gonna in some cases I feel like it's gonna have some negative repercussions.
All right, so just again, because it's just what I do, to make things even worse, pretty much they got until the day or two before Thanksgiving is when that list has to be submitted. Bro, it's November at the end of this week. We're 3 days in. Technically, we're a couple days into November at the end of this week. Hey, man, we'll see how things go. On to the next topic. Man, take it or leave it, man. The Ravens have agreed to a trade for the Panthers. Shout out to the Panthers. Keep supplying every contender in the NFL for year after year after year. Former Steelers wide receiver, now former Panthers wide receiver, Deontay Johnson is headed to Baltimore for a 5th rounder. And so Baltimore sent them a 5th. The Panthers sent them Deontay Johnson in a 6th. The kicker, because I know you guys will love this, the difference between those two picks, 15 spots. Ray, take it or leave it.
Take it, man. Anybody that's worth anything, just send them out of Carolina. Like, honestly, like, well, why? It makes it's more exciting if you send them to the Ravens. That adds another layer to the season they're having. But yeah, that place is a dumpster fire. I don't know what's going on down there, but somebody need to get in there and fix it. But yeah, I'm sure he's happy to be out of purgatory. So and I'm sure Lamar's happy to have another weapon. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out for them.
Octavia?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it too, just to let my man get free. It can't be no fun down there in Charlotte. It like you said, it's a dumpster fire out there. To me it's kind of crazy because we kind of know how Dave Tepper is, and like he wants results, and that's not happening. They had to regress and go back. I hate to say regress, but go back from Andy Dalton back to Bryce Young, and now saying they think Bryce Young is, going to be better for it. But you keep taking stuff away from him. Like, what are you going to want from him to do? Like, at this point, like, I don't know who the 3rd string quarterback is. Put my man out there. Like, because you're taking any type of help or productivity or production that he could have away from him as well. But I understand it. They're not going anywhere. They got to start all over again. And they just started over 2 years ago. So congratulations to him. Going to Baltimore, I feel like it's a mixed bag. I feel like I don't really think the Ravens needed another offensive weapon. They probably needed more of a defensive weapon, to be fair. And I hope they don't change their identity too much. where they kind of start getting pass happy because they got another pass catcher when we know that it should run through Derrick Henry and spawn off with Lamar Jackson. Their two tight end sets are finally starting really to flourish. Mark Andrews had a horrible beginning of the season. He's just now coming on to late. Maybe it's still some hangovers from his injuries from last year. We know Isaiah likely had a good start. He's fallen off a little bit as well, but I just hope it doesn't change them. I hope for their sake it doesn't change them too much. But anytime an NFC, I don't want to say contender because that's not them, but an NFC team loses a good player and they go to the AFC, I'm all right with that. As long as he ain't end up nowhere in my division. Can you imagine? I'm pretty sure the Dallas Cowboys would have been okay with the second number 2 wide receiver. I'm sure they could have used that as well. So, but congratulations to Deontay Johnson getting out of Charlotte, making your way up 95 and going from 85 to 95 and going up to Baltimore and have an opportunity to win, and also an opportunity to play back in the AFC North and play against your old team. And those games are always fun.
Yeah, gotta love that. Also, I think for Baltimore, I just think it was a little bit of an admission. They're going through one of those things contending teams go through too. Their defensive coordinator is a head coach now. He's in Seattle. Their defense is going through some nasty growing pains, man. I think some of the things people don't realize when good teams lose staff members, there is an adjustment period. Everybody does not adjust correctly. Right now, Baltimore's defense ain't what it was. And Baltimore is like, you know how we deal with it? If we just make sure we score every time, these fools can't lose a game for us. So can't get too mad at it. All right, on to another NFL team who's reaping the benefits of teams just being kind of stupid. I'm sorry, I had a better lack of a word. The Chiefs, they beat people to the punch last week. They're right now they're after going 6-0, they made a trade. And then after going 7-0, they made another trade. First trade, DeAndre Hopkins for a 5th rounder out of Tennessee. Shout out to the Titans. Why not help the team trying to repeat or what have you? Then you got the Patriots signing very talented edge Josh Uche for a 6th. Take it or leave it that folks should hang up the phone when the Chiefs, when Brett Beach dials you, right?
Yeah, why are we helping them? They got back-to-back Super Bowls. Like, why are we actively helping them get a 3rd? But hey, man, look, the game is the game. Obviously they have garnered favor in the league somehow, but yeah, it's puzzling to me. But I ain't the one that got to deal with it. So, hey, man, look, if folks want them to keep running the table, then I'll just sit back with my popcorn and watch.
And I'll tell you before I pass it on to you, just to let people know, we know DeAndre Hopkins is, on that side of his career. For those who don't know who Josh Uche is, it's a 26-year-old edge who ended up in New England on the wrong side of New England, not being New England anymore. That's his sin. Is he showed up after the Pats were washed. That's his one sin. Octavia.
Yeah, I'm taking it that nobody should answer the phone from them at all. Like, I don't know what it is. And then Tennessee always giving people away to the wrong people. That's what got their GM fired 2 years ago. I appreciate you for giving me AJ, though. We appreciate that. But here we are again, Now, like you said, not Devontae, but DeAndre is on the other side of his career. But he's still a pretty good wide receiver, especially when you put him with the likes of Patrick Mahomes and not Will Levis or whoever else is there, Mason Rudolph. DeAndre Hopkins is also skipping his way about it there too, and is excited to be in Kansas City with an opportunity to win a championship. And I don't want the Chiefs to get anything else good. I'm tired of them winning, obviously, because they beat my team 2 years ago when we should have won. but I digress. And then like their defense is already good. Why do they need more? Chris Jones has had terrific seasons, which feels like the last 10 years. Like, what more do they need?
Apparently a third championship. We got one rapid fire question, and then we shall be out here. We're going to start and end with this because this has been the biggest topic of the day thus far because people are funny, man. But Anthony Richardson has officially been benched by the Indianapolis Colts per Jeremy Fowler. Sorry, not Fowler, but Fowler and Adam Schefter. The Colts are going to Joe Flacco. This is 2 days after Anthony Richardson, I can't even say allegedly, 2 days after he asked to come out of the game against the Texans for one play. Happened to be third down is the down in which he missed. And the usual things were said from the team sources, a growth opportunity. We're not giving up on him, yada, yada, yada. I want to get your thoughts on that. And then keep in mind that Daniel Jones either just had or is about to have his 71st start in the NFL. Octavia and we out.
I'm gonna just start doing this now. Like, take me out, coach. It was wild to hear. These Gen Zers are they are crazy, bro. To be the starting quarterback of now, granted, the Colts haven't been that great the last couple of years. But to be a quarterback in Indianapolis, coming behind the likes of Peyton Manning, we know what Andrew Luck did for a while before they fell into this purgatory of old quarterbacks. With now Joe Flacco, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, they've had these last couple of years. They finally really wanted to turn it over to a young guy that they believed in. And now my man said, I'm too tired, bro. I'm tired, boss. I can't do it. I need a break. It's a bad look because of your team. You know, like you're the quarterback, you're the leader of the team. To say I need to come out on a third down play in a division game against the Houston Texans, and then to just come on out and just say it so blatantly, like, God bless his heart for being honest. You know, I guess I give him credit for that, but I don't know. And I mean, I understand the benching of it because I think the benching is more so for the morale and the locker room, knowing like, hey, we can't just have somebody just willingly quit on us and it just be kind of swept under the rug. So I understand it in that aspect. I don't think it'll be a long benching, if anything, but if Joe Flacco looks anything like he looked last year, you might want to take a chance. You know, there's crazier things that happen in divisions. Granted, they lost to the Houston Texans, I think now twice. The Houston Texans are without Stephon Diggs. They're without Nico Collins. Joe Mixon, of course, has had his injuries within the division, within the season so far. So they're going to have to rely heavily on Joe Mixon, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz. So yeah, I mean, anything can happen in the division, you know, so, you know, go out there and try your best. And we know Jim Irsay, you know, he likes to try a lot of different things. So hopefully the rookie learns from this, you know, some things, but I think again, like I said, these Gen Zers, you know, like they tell everything, you know, they on Instagram, you know, they rob somebody, they on Instagram telling the whole world they did it, you know, so this to me is the same thing. So maybe, you know, it lets you know, like, hey, bro, like you really got to pick and choose the words you say. Some media and training, again, is always going to be amazing because if I was training for media, that is not something you say at all. But yeah, hopefully it's a learning experience. I mean, granted, like I said, he hasn't developed probably as much as they would like. When you're looking at the likes of CJ Stroud, I mean, you're looking at Jaden Daniels, you're looking at even Caleb Williams. I mean, for goodness sake, Bo Nix looks good. Like, come on, you know? So it's tough in that aspect when you feel like you have the guy, he should be progressing. He looks like he may be regressing. And then you have, if you want to call it a character issue in this instance, and you guys are trying to find your footing and trying to figure out where you're going to go, because ideally you would want to really get him playing. He's missed some games last year. He's missed a good handful of games this year. I think they said he played 12 games in college. So he doesn't have that much experience in playing, where they probably want to get him as much as possible so they can really see what they're working with, to see if they also need to tear it down and start over. You know what I mean? So it's a bad look for him. Hopefully he learns from it. He better cross his fingers and toes that Joe Flacco don't go out there and light it up, because he's going to be sitting over there for a little while.
Right.
Yeah, he would need to be doing some extraordinary stuff in practice to see my field again. That's craziness, man. Like, you tired, you need to catch your breath. All right, get all the rest you want, baby. Like, I don't know what's going on with this new era of athletes, but yeah, this ain't where it's at, man. Like, seriously.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone. All I will say for all these teams, and I think the NFL has an issue where if you feel like you're gonna turn it over to a young quarterback, y'all need to mean what you say when you do it. Otherwise, don't draft them. Like, if you're gonna draft them and choose to develop them, that means y'all gotta ride with them through the ups and downs, the good and the bad, to get to the other side. Some of y'all think you're gonna draft them and they just CJ Stroud it. Nah, CJ Stroud is the dude who accidentally chose Ohio State, who shouldn't have. Everyone else that come out of Ohio State, it's been kind of funky. So that was an exception, an outlier, if you will. But yeah, man, like, either commit to it or don't. Like, that's the one thing I get a Jags credit for. I don't like who they took. I don't think he's got that much better. However, if you took him, you ride with him through that rookie deal. You take him that high, you ride with him. So I'll at least give the Jags that. I don't agree that I wouldn't have did the other thing they did, which was pay him now. You had more enough time to be like, I don't have to do this. Same thing with the Giants. If you can sit through Daniel Jones, you also didn't have to do that. I would have stopped there. But let them play. Like, they gotta go through it, man. These teams keep going up to the top of the draft, drafting somebody. Y'all know the college game ain't the same. You know the education they're getting on a college level and a high school level isn't what they used to get by the time they build up and hit the NFL. You talk about 12 starts in college, Octavia. He has 10 starts in 2 years in NFL. This bench is about, like, we're pretty much, like, I don't care what's said, unless you have the situation where, like, God forbid, not wishing this on Joe Flacco, but like what the Panthers did, where you pretty much said, all right, we're giving up on youngster and we're going to the old wily vet who we also, nobody's doing, like, nobody believes Andy Dalton's about to do anything. Like, his day's been behind him. Once you do that, like, you just admitted that you're giving up. And again, it's not knocking Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco, but like Joe Flacco before he became a backup had a good career. Joe Flacco was better. Like, he's fine. But what are we doing here, man? Pick him, commit to him, or don't. But I can understand sometimes the situations where you got a contender team, you draft high, like, then you kind of like, it's a lottery ticket for real, right? Because if it doesn't, it's cool, but you're the Colts. No one told you to go pay all the defensive players like you were going to contend and then take a raw prospect at quarterback.
Yeah.
If you're going to commit. Like, sell them expensive players and just be bad until you come up. What did Buffalo do when they got Josh? They was just trash until he got good. Good, bad, and different. We're going to figure it out together, guys. But you got to do it, man. Like, it's just crazy. Because some of these guys are coming out where their college resume ain't hitting on anything. And then you get mad that in the first 10 games, they ain't like the NFL on fire. Excuse me? They didn't like the NFL on fire. All they was doing in college was RPO left, RPO right. You mad because they going up there against Steve Spagnuolo, and he's like, boy, I used to confuse Tom Brady. You know what I'm about to do to you? Seriously? Come on, man. We got to stop this. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll check in on you guys next week. And as always, we'll see you guys a little bit later this week for Wizards Outlook.